Welcome. So we're very fortunate today to have Joe Sanderson Jr., who is the chairman of the board of directors and also chief executive officer of Sanderson Farms, headquartered in Laurel, Mississippi. Joe is a graduate of Laurel High School and Millsaps College. Upon graduation from college, he returned to Laurel in 1969 and joined the family-owned business, where he has served in various capacities. He is the third generation and has grown Sanderson Farms into the only publicly traded Fortune 1000 company headquartered in Mississippi, which is fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Joe, by the way. Thank you. And so Sanderson Farms is engaged in the production, processing, and marketing of poultry. It is one of the largest poultry companies in the United States, with approximately 18,000 employees and operations in Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, Georgia, and North Carolina, with revenues of over $3.4 billion. So we're very fortunate and thrilled to have you here with us, Joe. So quick aside, I do a lot of research in family businesses also, so it's fantastic to see a great family business here in Mississippi do so well. So just thank you very much for being here on that.
Well, thank you for the invitation.
Jumping into our questions here, please tell us a little bit more about yourself and your professional experiences.
Well, you know, when after I got out of college, I was just going to take a year off. And so I came to Laurel and worked in the business, and didn't know what I was going to do. But they gave me a pickup, and I worked on the farms, and we became a two-car family all of a sudden. And I loved my work, and I never left after that. I worked on the farms for 2 years. And then I went to the plant, and I stayed at the Laurel plant for 7 years. And then I actually worked at, I was over all the plants. We had 3 at that time. And then we acquired the Collins plant, and I became president in 1989. And we hadn't really grown in the chicken business since 1981, when we acquired Collins. And being a public company, I knew we had to grow. So my team developed a growth plan, and we presented it to the board of directors. And that growth plan, the original growth plan, called for us to double shift each of our 4 plants and build a new plant in Macomb, Mississippi. And we did all that over a 3-year period of time, and our sales went up tremendously. And then subsequent to that, we built a plant in Texas in 1997, and then we built 6 more complexes over the next, from 1997 until 2019. And our sales went from $189 million to the $3.4 billion. And we did not grow to be bigger. We grew the company to increase the value of the stock. And we've had many interruptions, and events occur, and industry cycles, and but that's been our story. We intend to continue that growth. We just opened a plant in Tyler, Texas that reached full production this past spring. And we stated publicly we're looking for a site right now to build another complex. And we have just found it better for us to go to places where there's ample labor, water, that can be environmentally sound for the next 30, 40 years. And that's what we've chosen to do.
That's brilliant, brilliant. Because I mean, you know your company, you know how to grow it too, which is fantastic. So you mentioned some of the downturns, and I know that one of the big points about the REDe Summit is entrepreneurial resilience. Could you describe a little bit about that as you put the COVID-19 pandemic in perspective, telling us a little bit more about other potential catastrophic issues that you've had to overcome?
Yes, historically, our industry has been characterized by cycles where the industry overproduced. There would be a period of profitability, and then the industry would produce too many chickens. And oftentimes that coincided with excess protein of pork and beef. That's what was happening, and as we entered 2020, and that occurs from time to time, and that is the traditional cycle. Beginning in the 90s, we started having events occur that were not necessarily cycles. And the first one that occurred was that I recall was a ban of exports into Russia. And then the economic downturn of 2008, it was accompanied by a drought, and corn went to $8 a bushel. As all commodities, oil, you might remember, and gasoline prices escalated. And then in 2011, there was another drought. In 2008, the largest poultry processor declared bankruptcy. In 2011, there were 4 poultry companies declared bankruptcy. So there are events, and then there are traditional cycles. In 2020, we were entering a cycle of ample protein, chicken, beef, and pork, and then the pandemic, which is an event, that occurred at the same time as the cycle. So in February, March, April, when it really took hold, part of the market that we deal with, restaurant, food service, shut down almost. We have 7 plants that produce product for food service, and we have 5 plants that produce product for retail grocery stores. Mm-hmm. Well, the food service market was taking a big hit. Restaurants were closing. People were not going out to eat. But the grocery store business was very strong. And another market was hit as well, and that was the export market. And our industry ships about 20% of the production into exports. And what was happening in the export market was the same thing that was happening in the United States. So 2020, you had 2 things occurring. You had the traditional cycle, and you had the pandemic. We did a couple of things. One, we dealt with the pandemic first mainly to protect our workforce. That was number one. And fortunately, the things we did, we have never had an outbreak at any of our plants. We've been able to maintain full production. Another thing we did was reduce the production at our food service plants. We've shifted about 5% from our food service plants to our retail plants to keep up with the increased demand at our retail plants. We had to be flexible. We did a lot of things to protect our workforce. At the beginning of this, we engaged with 2 doctors of infectious diseases, and one of them visited our facilities in Georgia, our hatchery, our feed mill, our plant, to see what the conditions were. And he made several recommendations, which we did right off the bat. And I think that is what kept us from having any outbreaks, widespread infections in our facilities.
Yeah, that's amazing, because obviously you're facing that perfect storm you're describing, with the cyclical and the pandemic coming together. Which if you think about graphs, forms that cross, which no one wants to see. So that's just
absolutely.
That's amazing. Moving on to the next question. What do you think will be the next big challenge to which you have to adapt in your field?
Well, we're hopeful, very hopeful, that this pandemic is going to resolve because of vaccine in 2021. We're concerned about people's lives in our plants and their health. We've never had that before. So we're taking more precautions, spending more money because of that. So we're hopeful that resolves. The next thing that it's time for there to be a drought. We hadn't had a drought anywhere in the world since 2011. And there could be a crop failure. It could happen in South America. It could happen in the United States. It could happen in China, India, or Europe. Those are the 5 main crop producing regions in the world. That has not occurred since 2011. So odds are that that is going to occur in one of those areas, even though genetics are getting better and better with the seeds. Odds are with climate change, without climate change, there's going to be a crop failure somewhere, sometime. And so you just need to have a good balance sheet and get through that. Those events occur. And so if I had to pick one, I would say a crop failure somewhere, sometime would be the next thing to be on the lookout for.
So historically, how often do the droughts normally occur? Approximately.
4 to 5 years,
Oh, okay.
somewhere.
Right.
Brazil, El Nino. I know you've heard of El
Oh, yeah.
Nino.
Yes.
El Nino will give you the crop failure. And we have not had that.
When you face career challenges, what kept you from giving up?
Never thought about that. Typically, the events that occur, the cycles that occur, the industry bounces back in 6 to 9 months. Most people cannot. Their balance sheets and their bankers rein it in, and never contemplated giving up. You go to work. When the industry is making a lot of money, that is not when a CEO does his best work. A CEO does his best work under adverse conditions, I think. That's when he's got to be relaxed and show leadership and confidence. And so his people that report to him will be confident as well. I think that's when they're challenged, when there's a challenge, I think that's when you do your best work.
That's excellent. Who would you consider a mentor, and how did this person assist and or prepare you for the challenges that you have faced?
Well, I had 2 or 3 mentors. My father, of course, was one. His right-hand man was Odell Johnson, and I reported to him for many years. Wyatt Davis was our CFO, and he was my CFO. Daddy hired him, and he and I negotiated our very first permanent credit facility. We had never had a real credit facility until 1992, and I wanted one before we built the Macomb plant. And Wyatt and I did that together, and so those 3. My daddy was a brilliant man. To me, I always considered him the entrepreneur. He started with nothing, and he got in the chicken business. I grew it, and I've changed the product mix and changed the formula, and we've done something different, and then we've built everything, and that's not the way it was traditionally done in the industry. Most everybody else acquired.
Right.
My dad taught me principles. He wanted me to get no favor. He was very certain that did not occur. And Odell Johnson was the same way. He did not want me to get any favor. I was his gunslinger when something happened at a plant. They sent me to run it. I spent 2 years at Hammond, Louisiana, a year at Collins, Mississippi after we bought it, and a year at our foods division in Jackson after we bought it. I took over for Odell as president after he retired. So I had 3 mentors. I learned a lot from all 3 of them, a lot of principles, a lot of hard work. I was very fortunate. I had 3 tremendous and very talented mentors.
It's fantastic. Thank you for that. Along those lines, so as you know, we're here at the University of Mississippi, so a lot of this is going to go out to our college students. What should college students do to be more prepared to have an entrepreneurial mindset?
We have some principles that we have written down that are part of our philosophy that we've just done in the last 3 or 4 years that we try to distinguish us. And one of them is hard work, and the other one is do your homework. And we don't go out and build a plant or make a marketing change or whatever it is we're doing without thoroughly doing our homework and working hard. Back in the 90s, we were one of the largest fast food producers in the industry. We were Kentucky Fried Chicken's 2nd largest supplier. We were the largest supplier to Popeyes and to Church's. But the margins on those products were diminishing. And there was a new market emerging that we were not participating in. It was a deboning market segment for food service. And we kept looking and looking, but we could not get information about it. So we converted one shift at our Collins plant to Big Bird, to heavier bird, and started deboning. And we started getting information about it. 2 years later, we exited the fast food market segment. It was a huge risk, leaving something we had been doing for 25 years and been good at, and going to something we didn't know anything about, but we did our homework first. It took a lot of homework, and then it took a lot of courage, I guess is what you'd say. But it worked out well for us.
That's fantastic. Great story. So thank you very much on that. We've been very fortunate to have Joe F. Sanderson Jr., Chairman, Board of Directors, and Chief Executive Officer of Sanderson Farms, headquartered in Laurel, Mississippi, as our guest today on our panel for the REDe Summit. And Joe, thank you once again for taking time to do this.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the invitation.